Y'all, it's Hope at Crafty Hope, and welcome. I got a suggestion from my online friend Terry that I record some of my little assemblages that I'm making for my 100-day project. So for my 100, well, I'm doing two projects. One of them is hashtag mini assemblage 100. Last year I did assemblage 100, and every day for 100 days created or part of an assemblage. I didn't come out with 100 assemblages, but this year I kind of thought if I worked really small, I could do mini assemblages and end up with 100 of them. So that's kind of the idea I'm going with. And they're different every day. It depends on what kind of time I have, what I'm feeling, how late in the day it is, how rushed I am, whatever. And yeah, so I decided to pop on the camera for these three, which are 42, 43, and 44. You can find them on my Instagram, but I'm going to show you these. So this is number 42, so day 42 of the 100-day project. And I started with that little rusty bit that I found in a parking lot. And I thought, okay, I'm just going to start with that and start pulling things together. I've got a couple little buckets of like paper and fabrics and buttons and threads and all kinds of stuff. There's some thread. I don't even know. Well, yeah, that's a bit of ledger paper, and then the other is a piece of music paper that I had done some watercolor on, and that is some coffee dyed fabric. I think it is a Dollar Tree flour sack towel, probably. So I used a little Uhu there, and you saw I futzed with a lot of things in that one, just kind of seeing what I felt was right, what worked together, what orientation I wanted, how I wanted it to lay out, and it's just a lot of play really most of the time. Now, and some of these are jewelry oriented and some of them are art oriented. The majority of them are these little art assemblages. So I inked the edges of that with, I think that was tea dye distress ink. And yeah, so now as you can see, I'm gluing things together. That is Fabri-Tac. So I'm putting on that little bit of fabric and sticking it down on my piece of collage there. And like I said, each of these take a little bit more time. This one was a little more futzy. The next one, it goes together really quickly. And then the last one was even more futzy. So, all right. So now I've got my bit and I'm going to bring that in and I will use E6000 to stick it down. And that's because it's metal, it's heavy, it needs a sturdier glue. So I'm gonna put it there and then I walk away for a few minutes and come back with some embroidery floss. And I picked out this purple color because it kind of went with those purple flowers that are in that watercolor that I did. So I'm gonna skip ahead where I have where I've threaded a needle, and I'm pre-poking the hole where I want to start, and I'm just going to do kind of a big X over O, and you see that bit wasn't even completely dry with the E6000. I think I got ahead of myself. But I'm just going to put a big X over the top of this bit to kind of secure it to the fabric and the paper there. And once I get it on there, once I get that X formed, because I still have that needle out and there's plenty of thread on it, I am going to decide that I want to do some mark making with with the thread. That's, well, embroidery floss, but so I look at it for a second and I decide since I made an X on that bit, I'm going to go ahead and make X's elsewhere on this, mostly on the fabric. And that's simply because the paper only has that little layer of paper. It can tear really easy because I don't have anything backing on it. So I'm going to try to stick to staying on that fabric as much as possible. So just a couple of X's on here with this. And I've gotten to a point with these mini assemblages, especially if I'm going to work in the art realm and not the jewelry realm, that I've got almost a formula that either some fabric or paper or both, some kind of rusty thing, some thread, maybe a button. I've kind of just got these things that I want to pull into them, and I've been fighting it, kind of like I did that yesterday. I don't want to do that again today. But at the same time, I've started to realize that that kind of becomes my style. If I'm always using a little bit of collage, a little bit of paper, a little bit of fabric, some stitching, something rusty, and a button, that gives me a distinctive style, and it's what makes me happy. And these little assemblages are really just a stepping stone into my art journey. So I'm going to play with what I want to play with, what the things I have. I have lots of rusty things. I have lots of buttons. I have lots of thread. I need to use them. So these assemblages are perfect for that. All right, so I am finishing this up. Oh, and also the 100-day project is also perfect for this. It's kind of my other project is to make 100 faces. So every day I'm drawing a face. Now, y'all, faces don't make a huge showing in my artwork, but it's nice to just kind of have that skill of something I can doodle and something that I'm learning and improving on. So that's kind of what the 100-day project is to do the same kind of things over and over and over again until you figure out how you like to do it, why you like to do it, what's your favorite way to do it. So yeah, think on that. All right, so I tied that off on the back, but to secure it, because that is still just a bunch of paper, I'm using some masking tape to stick it down. You'll see this, I think, in the next project too. And I've already recorded another project that I've used. I love using the masking tape to finish it up. All right, so here gets super futzy where I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got this huge expanse of space here on the left. I need to put something in it. I don't know what to do here. So I pull out all of this stuff and I'm going to futz and play with it. And y'all, none of it is going on here. Not a bit of it. Some of these things you'll see worked into my project tomorrow, actually, or the next day, on day 43. But I've got some lace. I've got some yearbook photos. I've got scraps of paper and buttons and oh, y'all, I was struggling because that expanse there on the left, it was just too much with that bit of fabric, that rusty bit and fabric tucked all the way over there on the right. It felt completely unbalanced to me. So, and there's a button. I thought about that one for a good while and I was like, no, that's not gonna work. What's this little piece of paper? What's this little piece of paper? So yeah, these 100-day projects don't just fall together. There's a bit of struggle in it for me. Some days you'll see the next one is seriously like, yeah, these things are going to just go together. And we'll talk about that when we get there. I've got these little bundles of thread I thought I might throw in there. I'm not even sure what that was. Oh, a piece of broken jewelry, I think. And I pick it up and I look at it, and that's where I decided what was killing me was that expanse of space. And I wanted to keep that 60 on there because it really helped you know that that was a piece of ledger paper. So I tore that a little bit off and I inked the edge here thinking, okay, I'm just going to make it smaller. I'll use that other little piece later. But as I look at it, I pick up that other little piece and start laying it on there. And I'm sorry, I'm out of frame here. And something right there was like, oh, I can just make this a little bit smaller. So yeah, I'm going to grab that Oohoo glue stick again and glue this little piece here. You'll see. I was thinking about it forever. And yeah, I don't know if you saw me throw up my hands there. That was like, just glue it up. So yeah, I glued that down just like that. And I think that is it for this one. I was pretty happy once that was done. I was like, oh, that's all it needed. It needed to be shortened. Oh, no, that's not what I'm going to do. I decided the ledger paper, it needed a little more texture in the background. So I grabbed my Tim Holtz, I think it's Tiny Toadstools stamp it's got a little bit of like some writing on one of the stamps. And I'm going to use that with some stays on to just lightly put some of it around in the background. And I'll stop and say, okay, I'm done. But then I look at it again and I kind of need some over on the right. And so, yeah, I'll pull it back out and then do a stamp. And then number 42 is done. Yep. Just like that. I'm going to give you a closer look and let you see a couple of the pictures. now we are on to day 43. And I don't remember if I was just in a rush or what was going on, if I just wasn't feeling it, but I decided, y'all, I'm just going to pull some things out of this basket and start stacking them. And really, that's all I'm doing. Almost everything gets stacked. I didn't want anything with a whole lot of color to it, but you can see I'm pulling something out. I'm looking at it, tearing it down, stacking it. This one was so easy because I was absolutely feeling just stitching a stack of stuff together. So yeah, that's all this is going to be. Some of that actual piece there is the backing to some copper foil tape that I use in my soldering, and I love that scallop shape of it. So I was like, you know what, that can go in my little bin. And there's that yearbook photo I tore off yesterday, and I didn't like the picture of the full girl, but I liked the part where you could see just a little bit of that guy smiling up there, but not his full face. And there's some, I think that's part of some tissue paper with some wax on it. And there's a piece of some kind of digital art that I had inked up. And yeah, I'm starting to feel like this is a great stack. And I'm trying to remember, I think I was looking for a button or something to top this, a bead, something. So I go digging back in this bin, and there I find a shank button that I thought was pretty cool. I can't remember, that button came out of somewhere, and I had put it aside and was like, oh, I could use that for something. And yep, it's getting used in this. So with my glue stick, I am going to just start gluing down this stack. Nothing, I'm trying to not overcomplicate this because like I said, I wanted to keep this very simple. So I'm trying to get it back in the same order I had it in. And sometimes I feel like I ought to take pictures of these when I get them stacked up to make sure that I get them back in the same order. And that's going to be the huge case for this third project that I'm going to show y'all today. See, in here, I put something down and I was like, no, I want it in the other way. I had to peel it up before sticking it down. So this is just paper and fabric for the most part here. There's a little bit of lace there, which gets a little bit of fiddly, because there's so many holes in it, I don't know. And that, like I said, that little piece of tissue paper had wax on it, some encaustic wax, so it was sticking to things. And you can see I've pulled out this little spool of brown embroidery floss, but then when I go to look for a needle, I realize that the needle that I end up grabbing already has some brown embroidery floss on it. I'm tapping my fingers trying to decide what to do. And yeah, sure enough, there we go. So I'm just going to make a knot on the end real quick. And yeah, 1, 2, 3, wrap that around, pull it through, and that's a needle. That's a trick I think I saw oh, what's her name? Claudine Hessen, Jeff. I can't think of Claudine's last name. It's so long. But I made that knot, and then I went through my fabric and then through the button shank and then back through my little stack. And I'll do the same thing. I will come up through my stack, not aiming for the hole in the button, and then go through that buttonhole and then back down through my stack. And then the button still felt a bit wobbly, so I'm going to go back up through it again, trying to keep everything stacked well. And I will wrap the thread around the button a couple of times. And that helps me stabilize it. And then I go back down through the stack on the other side. Y'all, I don't know if that's how you're supposed to put shank buttons on. That's just how I do it. So I was looking at that and I felt like it needed some darkness on it. So I will make a couple of, I think I do 2 or 3, I think probably 3 French knots on here. And these are just single wrap French knots. So that means I come up through my stack. I wrap the thread around my needle 1 time, and then I go back through near where I came up, but not exactly through. And this will make a little French knot. Now, if you want bigger knots, I can't remember, my battery died or something there, I had to come back. If you want bigger knots, you need to wrap your thread around your needle more times. But I just wanted a little touch of something. There was already so much going on this. So with that, I am going to glue down a couple things that were popping up like that. and then flip it over and tie this off. I think I'm going to take a look at it first to make sure it doesn't need anything else. But y'all, this one was, I don't know, it wasn't one I was super stressed about, and it came out great. So I've got to remind myself that sometimes just throw some things together. So I tie that off, trim it. I will put some of that masking tape on the back of it again. And that is it for day 43. And again, I'm going to give y'all some looks at this one before we move on to day 44. All right, for day 44, I like the bit one. I decided to start with something I already had. And this, I've got several of these, y'all. They are escutcheons. They are basically the back of like a door handle or a drawer pull or something like that. It's just a decorative metal element that goes behind like drawer pulls. And it was super shiny, and I thought if I sanded it down, I could take some of the shine off, but the brassiness on the outside of it really just, yeah, it wasn't having it. So, and then I thought, okay, well, maybe I'll texture it. But y'all, it was super strong, and my little hammering of it did not work. So I cleaned all that up, and I thought about it for a minute and decided, okay, well, if I'm going to alter this, let's alter it. And I pulled out my black gesso and I painted it. I'm not going to make y'all watch me paint this whole thing, but just know that I painted it twice. I painted it, dried it, and painted it again, and I'm just painting the front side of it. Now, once I had it dry, I'm pulling in some white chalk paint. I think this was just a couple days after I'd used some chalk paint on my week 27 mixed media prompt project for Crafty Hope prompts. And I was like, oh, I really liked that white chalk paint, and I've got so much of it. Let me use it here too. So I'm doing a dry brush technique over the whole thing, trying to accentuate some of the raised areas and whatnot. And I didn't want to paint the whole thing white after I painted it black. I just wanted it to have kind of white accents. But you can see I'm not super happy with this. It gets to be way wider than I anticipate. So once I get it, all of this white chalk paint on it, I'm going to take this, it's a bar towel from the Dollar Tree, but it's got paint all over it and glue all over it, so it's kind of rough. And I will rub that over this whole piece. So, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So I've dry brushed this on, and I put a little bit of water over the top of the whole thing, trying to blend it a little bit so it wasn't so streaky looking. So yeah, put a little water, and then I took that bar towel and kind of rubbed it down. And y'all, it did exactly what I wanted it to do. It took off some of that chalk paint and even a little bit of the gesso, and is super neat. So you got a little bit of the brass kind of poking through. Next, I will pull in I'm going to clean out the holes real quick, because I thought I might do something with the holes in it, and I don't. They end up just being holes that are on there. So this is also Waverly. It's the same brand as the chalk paint that I was using, and this is the wax stuff. That's the sealer that tends to go over chalk paint. And since I've got it, I'm using it. It was on my desk, and I'm just painting it over the whole surface to seal it. And y'all, I had no direction with this one. I was like, okay, I'm gonna alter this thing, and then I'm gonna do something. I don't know what I was gonna do. So I let that wax dry just a little bit. Again, cleaning out those holes, because I thought maybe I'd sew buttons through them or something. I don't know. I was unsure. So I start pulling out things from my little basket off to the side, and pulled this lace out and thinking, okay, well, I could cover this somehow right here on the front. And I even cut this lace down, thinking, okay, I can just put it across the middle here between the holes. And I don't like it. I don't know. I tried it a couple different ways. I was like pointing up, pointing down, and I was like, nope. So I ran and got a bunch of other laces to try out and put them across it, and was like, no, that's not going to work. And yeah. So, and I pulled out this one, and it's going to be the winner. So I put it across the front. I don't like it, but across the back there, I don't know, it like crowned it or something. I was like, oh, that's exactly what I want. it adds some texture and gives this a little bit of a different shape. And I guess that's what I was looking for, was a different shape. So once I decided on that, I thought for a little bit and I realized this needed some color. I needed a pop of color, and I knew I had a whole stash of watercolored flowers that I have made over some time. When I was laid up last year with a broken ankle, I did a lot of watercolor flowers in the bed. So I have a little bit of a collection of them. And I thought, okay, these would be super bright and perfect. So I pulled out a handful of them that I thought would work, and I'm just kind of layering them. Now, for some reason, I envisioned this kind of just to the top left of this sketching. So that's why I stayed. I didn't go too far to the right. And I'm layering this and looking at it. And I was like, okay, it's going to need something else. So I pulled out this little bit of book paper with a margin on it and took it to my typewriter and typed a couple words on it. One was grow and the other one was bloom. And I decided on bloom for this because, the flowers. I tried to think of something a little more deep thinking and like a great quote or something. But I was like, you know what? I want to keep this fairly simple. So I tore that bloom off of my paper, and I'll grab my acrylic matte medium and just glue it down to, I wanted that specifically because I had that wax on there and I wasn't sure how well other mediums would work on it, and I knew I could paint over the top of it and it would stay matte. So that's what I stuck with. So I'll put it on the back of it and then paint over the top of it as well. And you'll see it a little bit more in the pictures here at the end as well. And with that, y'all, really, it was just a matter of gluing all of this together. So I'm going to let y'all watch this. And I said this one was going to be super fiddly. The fiddliest part was the flowers. This is the thing where I should have taken a picture of how those flowers are laid out. It doesn't really matter in the end, but it was one of those things like, oh, that's not what I thought it looked like. It's okay. So I used E6000 on the back of my brass piece and stuck the lace in. Again, because that's metal, I tend to go for the heavier adhesives just to make sure it adheres really well. Then I'm going to use my Fabri-Tac to stick all my flowers together. So I'm just putting some Fabri-Tac on each of them, trying to keep them kind of where I think they're supposed to be. It's not great. I don't know. If you know of a better way to have done this, let me know, because it didn't come exactly the way I thought it would. So, but this worked great with the Fabri-Tac, just putting a little down, sticking it on my stack here. And I'll end up adding a few more flowers in here in just a minute. I was trying to work as fast as I could, but still, get it done. Give the glue a chance to stick before I moved anything around. So I've got those that I had laid out. I'm going to flip this back up and take a look at it. And I was like, well, that doesn't seem right. Nothing's hanging the way it was before. Things are sticking out that I didn't think were sticking out before. So yeah, I wasn't super happy. Then I noticed that there's like a gap where you can see through the flowers right in there, and I wanted something behind it, so I grabbed this yellow flower. It wasn't one of my favorites, so I thought, okay, that'll just add some color to the background. Let me go ahead and put some more Fabri-Tac down, stick that flower down over the top, and I think I'm gonna add a couple more flowers. I'm gonna grab I looked at it I'm going to go ahead and glue down my, my brass plate thing to the flowers. Again, using the E6000 because I knew it would go through that lace to it. And I'm making sure that anywhere where those flowers are touching the highest point of that brass plate that I had some glue, just so that, everything was secure. So I look at it and it feels a bit gappy. First I'm going to trim up my lace. See, here I thought I was done with the flowers, but I wasn't. I got super fiddly with it. So I trimmed off some of the lace because I didn't like that you couldn't see how the points came out on the metal thing. So I trimmed just the bottom of the lace. I wanted those peaks still sticking up though. So yeah, that was just a little touch. And I look at it and things are feeling floppy, so I'll add more glue. It's these assemblages, and really an assemblage is just a bringing of things together, and that's all I'm doing is grabbing some things and sticking them together. The big thing is gluing, stitching, yeah, getting them together. So as I go through my flowers, I find that I need something else. I find this one that's got a bunch of different color. I really love this flower here. And so I will stick it down. And then once I get it stuck down, that big green leaf that's there on the right starts to bother me. So I will add one more flower over the top of that in just a second. Of course, my glue is all over my fingers and I had to struggle with it for a minute. And once I get this other one glued down, I will be finished. See here, I put my glue up. I think, okay, I'm done. And I look at it and that big green spot. I'm like, no, it's something right here is bothering me. What is it? And so, yeah, I grab this small flower and I will glue it down. And that is it for this one. So this is the last of my 100-day projects for this week. If you are interested in me recording more of these, let me know. I would love to find out if this interested you at all. If you have any questions about my project or the 100-day project in general, let me know. I'm happy to answer them. I appreciate you coming by and taking the time to watch, and I will see y'all again later. Thanks, y'all. Bye.